discussion that is both relevant and timely in D.C., back home, and in our states, and also in the homes and businesses of the people who put us here in public office. We'll talk about high-speed internet and how we can assure that all Americans will have access to an increasingly important information. As you have heard, the government has estimated it will cost $350 billion to expand high-speed internet to reach all of our citizens. For us as policymakers, that raises immediate questions. Where will that money come from? What role does government play in that process, and how is the free market working today? While President Obama and the FCC and other policymakers wrestle with these questions, another issue looms large in the debate. It's called network neutrality, or net neutrality, as has become known. We have a distinguished panel to explore this issue and to help to understand whether net neutrality will help or hinder the nation's goal of expanding high-speed internet service. Our first speaker today is Robert McDowell. He was first appointed to a seat on the FCC by President George W. Bush and unanimously confirmed by the Senate in 2006. He was reappointed to the Commission on June 2, 2009 by President Barack Obama, and again unanimously confirmed by the Senate in June of this year. Prior to joining the FCC, Commissioner McDowell was the Senior Vice President for CompTel, an association represented competitive facilities-based telecommunications service providers and their supplier partners. Before joining CompTel in February 1999, McDowell served as the Executive Vice President and General Counsel of America's Carriers Telecommunications Associations, which merged with CompTel. McDowell graduated cum laude from Duke University in 1985. And I'm not sure how many of you were able to be in your hotel rooms on Tuesday night, but Duke University traveled to the state of Wisconsin. And while we are normally gracious hosts, I will let him explain what our basketball team did to their team. Sorry about that. I couldn't. After serving as a chief legislative aide to a member of the Virginia House of Delegates, which we heard ad nauseum about Virginia the other day. Is the speaker here? Anything else you want to let us know about Virginia, Mr. Speaker? Oh, yeah. And understand that Speaker Howell and McDowell have some great legislative stories that will not be talked about today. So with no further ado, Robert McDowell. Thank you.
Go ahead and close this.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction and your kind invitation to come here today. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank each and every one of you who has come up to me to congratulate me on my recent election as governor of Virginia. But that guy's name is Robert McDowell. Great guy, a former member of the Virginia House of Delegates, and what a tremendous night it was here recently. And it's great to see Speaker Howell as well, and there's no reason why Bill would remember this, but I first met him in 1987 when he replaced a member of the Virginia House of Delegates, a fellow great guy named Tom Moncure. And at the time I was working for another member named Bob Andrews, who has since passed away. And not long after witnessing Bill's quick mind, bright smile, and easy touch with people, it was not hard to guess that he would be a rising star in Virginia politics. And today he has transcended from being a principled and hardworking public servant, and he's hiding in the back, but he's back there, so I wanted to make sure I said these words because he's been a great friend. But he's really transcended from being a principled and hardworking public servant, the kind of person America could use more of in government, to becoming a true statesman. And his integrity, principles, work ethic, and his vision have enabled him to become the longest-serving member longest-serving Republican Speaker of the Virginia House of Delegates since Reconstruction. Now, for those of you from Wisconsin, you might not understand what that Reconstruction stuff is all about, but to us in Virginia it was very important and not the best of times for us. But anyway, Never underestimate Bill Howell. Earlier this year, very wise pundits and prognosticators were predicting that Republicans would lose their majority in the Virginia House. But thanks to Bill Howell's recruiting prowess and tactical shrewdness, and not to mention a gale force wind at his back and some very strong statewide candidates, he gained 6 seats, expanding his majority to 61 seats out of 100. He was also very helpful to me in 2003 when I ran for the Virginia House, and I lost in a squeaker, but always believing that such things work out for the best. 2 years later, almost to the day, I received a surprise phone call asking me if I wouldn't mind if President Bush appointed me to the Federal Communications Commission. And after I fell out of my chair and picked myself back up again, today I still have to pinch myself. And not only is this the greatest job that I never pursued, it has been the most wonderful job of my entire lifetime. So I cannot think of a more exciting time to be at the FCC. And I know, Speaker Howell, you've got to run at some point to go down to Williamsburg for the Republican advance, so do that when you have to. But I can't think of a more exciting time to be at the FCC. By some estimates, what we do at the FCC affects 1/6 of our economy and indirectly affects up to 40%. It may sound trite, but what the FCC does touches the lives of every American every day. How many Americans watch TV, listen to the radio, talk on the phone, or use the Internet? Even those without direct access to the Internet are affected by it, whether they know it or not. The FCC's reach is longer than you may realize. A lot is at stake, and it is important to pay attention to what the FCC does and to get involved. We want to hear what you think. Ideally, the FCC would be a place where the government would adopt policies that encourage innovation, investment, and economic growth. Although the American economy has been shrinking overall of late, our communications marketplace remains vibrant, evolving, and growing. Growth has been perhaps most striking in the proliferation of new high-speed on-ramps to the Internet, also known as broadband. This growth is partly the result of the FCC adopting policies over the past several years that get the government out of the way of the competitive marketplace. More specifically, instead of foisting old-fashioned Ma Bell-style monopoly regulation on emerging new broadband platforms and services, we correctly chose to keep broadband services largely unregulated. And what were the resulting public interest benefits of freeing these new and enlightening services from the shackles of century-old monopoly regulation? Well, let's look at some cold, hard facts. According to a recent Pew Internet and American Life Project study, in 2003, before broadband was deregulated, only about 15% of American adults had access to broadband at home. Today, a few years after the FCC sheltered broadband from burdensome regulation, a large majority of American adults, over 63%, have broadband at home. New kinds of broadband platforms are emerging as well. Wireless is the fastest growing segment of the broadband market. In 2003, the idea of wireless broadband was rarely mentioned. But by December of 2005, there were already 3.3 million wireless broadband subscribers. And as of just 3 months ago in September, ComScore, a Virginia-based company, estimates that that number had grown to 94 million wireless broadband subscribers.